And welcome back. This is K24 this morning. It's time for us to get up close and personal. Like we told you, this time around we have His Excellency Nderitu Mureithi, the Governor of Laikipia, a man who started off as a seasoned economist. I think economics was his thing. He's a financial markets expert. So what drove this particular economist to think that, okay, fine, let me give a delve into politics and see how that goes? And since he got into that space, he's never turned back. We talk about that particular journey, but more importantly, where he plans on going next. And the nitty-gritty is in between, because we know the story, we see the success stories of it and the highlights, but there's so much else that happens behind the scene. That's a discussion we have this morning on the show. We'd love you to tweet us as well at K24 TV. If you have any questions or comments as well, please send them to us on K24 TV or SMS us on 21222. His Excellency, warm welcome, karibu sana.
Asante, good morning.
Like I told you, yesterday I was actually in your county. I was in the area at Nyahururu, and I was like, probably I should just call the governor and tell him, let's have a cup of tea here as we get it done. But you told me you're actually on a different, you're somewhere else at the time.
In the morning, I was on the Nanyuki side. Then I came up to Nairobi in the afternoon to attend to a couple of meetings in the evening. Right. But yes.
And it's interesting because at the time, even as I was driving back, because I was using the Nyahururu or Kalau Gilgil route like that, and in my mind, I was wondering, as the governor, when you're going through this particular area, how is it on a regular commute? Are you looking at different projects as you're going every single day? Stop the car, this should have been done, it's not been done. Is that how it is for you?
Okay, I wouldn't, not, somewhat. Let me say somewhat. For instance, a regular commute for me is Nanyuki to Nyahururu, or Nanyuki to Rumuruti. And almost invariably, there will be projects and other activities we are doing on the route. So for instance, I might stop at Ramuria to check on the progress on a hospital theatre we are building there. Right. Or I might stop at Umiriri to check on the progress of the smart town. Right. So yes, there is a bit of that to stop in because you know, getting projects done on time does require that you put in effort at a supervisory level, and so that you resolve issues you know, in good time to ensure that progress is being achieved. Still, of course, we suffer from time to time. If you're in Nyahururu, you must have seen the bypass. Now, it's not our contract, it's Kenya Urban Roads, but we are directly affected. And the contractor is like nearly 2 years behind schedule, which is absolutely terrible.
And you know, it's funny because we're having this conversation now, but I'm imagining if I spoke to Mr. Mureithi a while back, let's say 11, 12 years back, as an economist, and working in private sector, did he actually think at one point in time he might want to get involved in politics? What drove you to this particular point? Because we look a very illustrious career, working both in Kenya and outside of the country. What made you feel it's time to come back home, it's time to plunge into this game called politics?
Well, you see, while working at IFC, part of, or a lot of my work, maybe 50% of my work, particularly in the latter years, when I was an officer responsible for improving financial markets, a lot of my work had to do with changing policy. Take something like leasing. We required to improve the rules and the law behind leasing transactions so that they can happen in Kenya. What we had primarily was hire purchase. Take things like bond markets, you know, and before we went on there, you were asking me about bonds. To deepen the financial markets, I was doing a lot of work to encourage, to create the circumstances to make it possible, particularly for small or middle-sized companies to issue bonds. If you take credit bureaus, if you take mortgages, and we've just recently, you know, the mortgage refinance company, but a lot of work has gone on in the past 10, 15 years, for example, to make registries more efficient in order to encourage mortgages to take place. So I was not in politics in the manner of being elected, I was a technocrat working with government and with political leaders to persuade them to do certain things to make the economy work better. And at some point, it was clear to me that perhaps many of us, or many more of us, ought to be on the political leadership side so that the conversation is easier.
But I'm sure even at the time, you knew the nature of politics, you'd interacted with them, and you know the rough and tumble that could be in politics. And you're working in the South African office at the time, you can see what's going on.
Indeed.
What made you feel like, okay, let me take a stab at that?
Well, look, first of all, even though there is rough and tumble in politics, there is also very high level intellectualism. There is very serious conceptualization required in order to imagine possible solutions to human issues. And I tell you, to be in politics is not to be mediocre. In fact, it is an invitation to manage at a very high level. Now, I know the way we conduct politics in Kenya, particularly the sensational kind, when people are trading choice words and things like that. But I tell you, there is a lot more to political leadership than what we see on the surface. For instance, take Laikipia. We have 3,100 folks working in our team. About half of them, 1,300, are part-time. They don't work full-time for government, but you know, and 1,800 work full-time. Nearly half of these 3,100 are on contract terms and so on. Now, managing that team, keeping it motivated, creating a unified direction is quite a management task. So politics is not just insulting one another, which is, I think, what people see.
It's a perception that most people have of what politics
but
is about.
It is way deep. I mean, the economy of Laikipia, for instance, what is it? What drives it? Which sectors are working? Where are we creating jobs? You know, how do we compete? What is our competitive advantage? How can we build it a competitive advantage? All those are questions for me and my colleagues to deal with on a daily basis. So I would conclude that by saying like this. Politics and leadership certainly are not the same thing. Every leader requires politics, being that politics is about acquisition and use of power. But not every would-be politician is a leader. But I have no regrets. I mean, I feel quite happy with the progress we've made in Laikipia. And both when I was MP of West Laikipia and now as governor. And I can see that it was the right choice.
And as an MP of Laikipia West, and even as a governor, like you said, it takes a lot of motivation of your team, consensus building. Let's talk about the basic unit where you needed to consensus build to move the family. When you decided to tell the First Lady now that I'd like to go and vie, I'd like to leave this position, how was that conversation in the house? Because you're leaving the known for the very unknown.
To the unknown. No, the family has been extremely supportive.
There wasn't any pushback?
No. I mean, the families have to have tough conversations about the choices that the partners are making and therefore the choices for kids. But it has to be an honest conversation that, yes, there are risks. For example, in political leadership or in any election, you could lose. And as a matter of fact, I've won 2 elections and lost 1. So it is it's a tough conversation and a choice that as a family we had to take. But the family has been very, very supportive of me, and including being very actively involved, which is very important. And obviously, you know, you think about, say, a hard day in politics when perhaps things did not go as well, maybe opponents have, you know, been pushing you and so on. It is nice to be able to go from that to a loving, welcoming environment, you know, where, you know, the people are not out for advantage. See, and this also happens in corporates. You know, you will be in a room or a meeting or a project or a program, but the people around the room, their motivations may be very different from yours.
Right.
And they may choose, and I see it in political leadership all the time, particularly where people have little information about something. We are usually, as human beings, we get very afraid when we don't know the depth of or the details of something. For instance, just recently, because you know we are the first county to do a leasing transaction, and some of the members of the business community wrote to me a bit nervous as to what it means, for example, for their relationship with county government, where they are contractors.
Right.
You know, am I now going to build all the roads without contracting them, or what will happen? And why leasing? And we've had to then call them and take them through what is leasing and how actually it can be beneficial to their own companies.
Right.
So after a laugh day in politics, it is nice to be able to go home.
Right.
And find sympathetic ears.
And it's interesting even because when you mentioned that, because for me, what I'm trying to figure out also is in terms of your journey, was there, where do you feel the political bug bit you? In university, were you in student leadership, or where did you feel that this started getting to the fore?
Well, I was in student leadership. I was fortunate, quite lucky really. My relatives took me to a university in Canada called St. Francis Xavier, and I was involved in student leadership. We had a program called X Project, which hundreds of us in the uni would go out to reach out to young people, particularly native Canadians and black Canadians, to encourage them to go to university. I was also vice chair of the International Student Association. So I was involved in student leadership. Never quite revolutionarily. Right. I mean, more sedate kind. When I finished university and I came back to Kenya, both in 92, 97, even 2002, I am involved in the whole matter, but not as a candidate, but I'm involved particularly in policy formulation. At that time, mainly supporting Mwai Kibaki and the Democratic Party in the first two elections, and then NARC in the 2002 elections. So very much backroom. For instance, both in 2002 and in 97, I was very, very much involved in crafting the economic platform that the party was running on. So for instance, this whole question of 500,000 jobs that were promised, that had a lot to do with myself and a few other colleagues. So I was never very far from it. It's only that it is not until 2007 that I put my hat in the ring for an elective position. Although, you know, in 2000, I did 2002. I did reflect on running it and concluded I wasn't ready, because you do also have to be ready. Right. And have figured out what you are running on, what platform, what really are you offering citizens, and you yourself as an individual, are you in a space to offer that leadership, or will it be a job or an assignment? So in 2002, I concluded I wasn't quite ready yet. I would also say in the late 90s, into early before the 2002 election, many of us as fairly young people, you know, we were quite interested in getting change. Those days we had young professionals, then we had a smaller group that was called 2063, which strangely later became the clarion call for the African Union. But we had a small group, you know, Moses Mwaura, myself, David D, a few friends, like this, looking at what can we do? We can't just sit and complain
Right.
We have to be actively involved in bringing positive change to this country. So I was never very far from it.
Right.
Only that it took quite a long time for me to go directly into elected politics.
And the thing is, because as before that, like you said, you were in the back room crafting policy and making sure as the actual leaders at the front went, they had their policy documents ready and everything, down to the dotted I and cross to the T. When you got the seat in terms of Laikipia West, because it's one thing to vie for the seat, and then you get in there and you realize it's a totally different game, the demands on your time, the people and interests that you need to balance. How was that? Once you've gotten what you've been fighting, day and night for, and get in and realize, wow.
Well, look, I must first of all thank the people of West Laikipia because I ran, frankly, on a very lean budget in 2007. And obviously my mindset is very much World Bank, IFC, corporate. And they accepted me in the way that I was. That I won't really give out money and things like this. I am interested in discussing the possibilities for the citizens of Laikipia. And they accepted me in the way that I was. And when I then became MP, we made a lot of progress, particularly in the education sector.
Right.
We built 23 new secondary schools during my period. And vocational training centers and so on. We did a lot of stuff that the citizens themselves, for instance, when we were building schools, we at that time, government, we had bought these machines for making interlocking bricks. So we literally, ourselves as the neighbors and citizens get involved. We get our technicians from Ministry of Housing and the machines, and they help us to do it, which is very liberating for people when they can craft their own solutions.
Right.
And those lessons we still continue with today. For instance, in Weumeredia, in a smart town we're building there, it is the citizens building the cobblestone road under supervision, of course, of experienced engineers, but we are directly involved in it. Of course, there are certain things that I think you are never prepared for. Or certainly I wasn't, like the security issues. One horrific incident in 2009 when the Pokot community and Samburu community had a really big fight. More than 60 people died in one particular gun battle. And that was just, I frankly considered resigning because I just felt it is on my watch.
Right.
Now, something ultimately positive came out of it in the Laikipia Peace Caravan. And the way the Laikipia Peace Caravan went is that many of us youngish people from the various communities that live in Laikipia, we then got together and took very bold, decisive action of facilitating discussion between these communities, which discussions ultimately completely resolved the conflict, and it has not recurred for the last 10 years.
Right.
And I was really pleased that I was part of that effort, or I led that effort to accomplish that task. In the fullness of time, or after many months, the Peace Caravan was in 32 different districts in Kenya. In fact, we were then called to a meeting with President Kibaki because this was a thing that was working and working well as a platform to bring communities together to resolve issues that may bring conflict. So I felt that we made very, very good progress.
And even now as governor of Laikipia, because some people wonder, it's not exactly one of those 85 jobs, being a governor.
No,
you're always on the job. How do you balance time for the county, time for Mr. Nderitu, time for the family? How does it work? Because Sunday you'll be called when it's family day and there's something that has happened and you will have to go.
It's a 24-hour job. Yeah. I tell you, it's a 24-hour job. You do have to carve time and to balance and to be careful to take time, whenever, how can I explain it? You see, it's not every day that there is a big problem,
right?
Isn't it? So whenever you can, you should take advantage of time, because you know, something will crop up, maybe a security issue or even an opportunity, not just a challenge, even an opportunity, which then requires, for instance, today, there's a meeting down here at Gigiri, the American Chamber. Now, that meeting, there'll be conversations around investments. So we've had to prepare our teams to go there, like the chair of the Laikipia County Development Authority, fairly senior guy, CEO of Centum, and his colleague, so that they can, represent certain investment opportunities in Laikipia.
Right.
But that requires preparation, and so on and so on. So yes, it's not a 9 to it's not a 8 to 9 8 to 5 job. It's a 24-hour thing, and of course, it's not just me. It's the senior staff around me themselves, and I have to try and remember and be careful because they have families and they need time. So, the senior advisors, the county secretary and so on, the CECs, it is like that. Right. But we do try very hard as an organization to recall that we are people first. Right. And across the organization, we are very keen to have a learning organization. So training is very big for us. We are keen to have motivated staff. So we have certain incentive, like sport awards. Every quarter, we recognize and reward staff who have done exemplary, either as individuals or as teams. Also regular feedback. So we have performance appraisal, which was kind of new for our neck of the woods, but we are progressing quite well.
And if you were to write your own appraisal, what type of leader do you think you are? What's your leadership style? If I was to walk into, the county government's office and you're not there, what do you think your staff would say in terms of how you carry the day? Are you the stern boss? How does it work? What's your leadership style?
No, more is a learning style, as I was indicating. I believe, nobody is born knowing everything. We learn, and I believe that there is goodness in all of us. That my first reaction to people is not to assume that they are up to some mischief. Right. It's actually to assume that they want to do good. And therefore, my job as a leader is to facilitate them to achieve that good. And I have been seeing it in my staff. If I look at the Laikipia Innovation Program, for instance, amazing things being done by people in government, assisting people in private sector to work. So my style is a learning style. My style is consensual. My style is to give space, create the right space for people to excel. I do think that leadership is about getting ordinary people to do extraordinary things. Right. And you can't do so by
cracking the whip.
No. you do so by creating the right environment for people to excel.
Let's see a couple of photos right here that you can just walk us through and tell us what was happening at these points and times. What was going on right here?
Here we are laying pipes. We are laying pipes, actually. This is somewhere towards Ndarasha in Aberdare. This is myself. This official, I think, is from Finland. And a number of guys. There's a project going on right now, Soli Water Project. The Soli Water Project will bring water to 4,000 households in the 7 villages of Soliu. Right. And this is... we had gone to inspect, so that is that.
What was going on at this particular point in time?
I do believe that this is Laikipia Nanyuki to Ronyek amateur race, and I'm registering to participate in it. With the grey, what is that? Greenish T-shirt and black cap. That is me. This is somewhere in Juakali, a center called Juakali just outside Nanyuki, and we are registering. It's a fun race.
Right before the run.
Right before the run. It's actually a moto vehicle race. And it's going to be on November 23rd.
Okay.
It's an annual thing.
Are you taking part this time around?
I am taking part.
Okay.
This is in Rumuruti. This is a Laikipia Indigenous Technology Fair. This Wuji is just amazing. I mean, this lady, she's pouring Wuji to us.
Right.
And this whole group, we didn't leave there until
it was done?
Until there was no more Wuji in the Guan. Now, my ambition is to assist this entrepreneur pack this Wuji and sell it in supermarkets. Yeah, that's what processing is all about.
Right.
And it's amazing, amazing Wuji. And of course, honey. Not honey. This is Rokori. Again, is one of my ambitions is to see if this can be commercialized. Rokori is meat packed inside honey. And it can last for 4 years. That's the shelf life. Imagine that.
Right.
So, and this is very much Kikuyu, Maasai, Turkana culture, preserving meat in honey.
Right.
Yeah, and I think we should commercialize it and put it in. This is where I would suspect this could be Nanyuki bus stage.
Because we can see it's at a marketplace. Definitely, I think you're getting your cup of tea.
I'm getting a cup of tea. Yeah.
When you go to these particular places, because I'm sure, again, what's going on right here as well?
This is a campaign to get people to register for NHIF so that they have health insurance.
Right.
Yeah.
When you interact with people on these particular levels here as you alight from a car, like at the rally that you were in different spaces.
Oh, I like that car. That car is moving into mass production. That the car that was right there is a BJ50.
Right.
Made in Nyahururu. Made in Nyahururu. Next time you're that way, please pay them a visit.
Okay.
At the small business cluster there in Nyahururu.
Okay. Yeah. So it's going to mass production pretty soon.
It's going to right now. They have a production batch of 14 cars.
Okay.
Yeah. And they think they'll be finished in the course of November.
Okay, that's some good news right there.
Absolutely. And this, Governor of Hunan Province came out almost a year ago now, and we are looking at how in Hunan Province in China, 80 million people, and we're looking at how can we get more tourists. And by the way, that is beginning to happen. So if you look at quite a number of hotels in Nanyuki, they're getting,
Right. Some interesting stuff right there. And even as we come to the tail end of the interview, as a parting shot, what did you say in terms of, yes, we know 2022 is around the corner, but as a leader, it's not elective cycles that matter. So for you, what's your parting shot as far as being the governor of Laikipia is concerned, and what you want the people of Laikipia to know as you move forward?
Well, I think that we are here right now, and we must perform right now. We can't be talking about an election that is 3 years away. We are here right now, and we are in position. It's not like we are waiting to get elected. So my view and my parting shot to the great people of Laikipia is that we need to stay focused on the work right now. Some big things ahead of us. Although we are leading in NHIF registration, there's still a large segment, nearly 35%, of the households who don't yet have health insurance, and we need to get closer to 100%. Number two, some big opportunities in housing, in Nanyuki and Nyahururu, and we should be taking advantage of those opportunities.
Right.
Number three, some big opportunities in feedlots. Feedlots is about how you keep cattle and you feed them in a smaller place. So feedlots as a way of getting much higher productivity from our livestock, and that's a major opportunity. We should be taking that. Pyrethrum is coming back in play, particularly farmers in West Laikipia. Pyrethrum is back in play, and it is a very good income. Again, we need to be taking advantage of that. And finally, the Laikipia Innovation Program, and Innovation and Enterprise Development Program. Hundreds of our officers involved in providing, helping people with business plans, linking them up to government agencies to assist them with intellectual property, with standardization and so on, with monies and so on. We need to take advantage of that opportunity to grow our businesses.
Okay, fantastic stuff. Of course, spending time and having a very interesting conversation with Governor of Laikipia, of course, Nderitu Mureithi on that. Even as we wind up this particular interview, because I'm told you're very good friends with our former president, Moi Kibaki. Please pass our regards.
I will do so.
To them, Mzee.
I will do so.
We had been told that he had gone for a surgery. We hope all is well.
But he's in fine health. And upbeat about the prospects for Kenya.
Okay, fantastic
so
stuff.
I will.
Okay, asante sana.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for your time.
Asante.
And all the best with your later engagements later on today.
Thank you.
Okay, fantastic stuff. Getting up close and personal with the governor right here. And of course, if there's one thing that I know about him, he's very active online as well. So if there's anything you want to carry on in terms of this particular discussion, you can get him online as well on that particular regard. You take a short break. We're back on the other side talking about dental care. When was the last time you went to a dentist? We talk about that after the break.